Hi everyone, welcome to this lecture on policy inheritance attachment for compartments and what happens to the policies when resources are moved or compartments are moved. My name is Rohit Rahi and I'm part of the Oracle Cloud Infrastructure team. So there are two important concepts which you need to understand when creating policies, and we discussed earlier that policies have to be attached to compartments. So there are two important concepts there. So one is the policy inheritance. And what it simply states is compartments inherit any policies from their parent compartment. So, for example, we saw this earlier. OCI has a built-in policy for administrators which says allow group administrators to manage all resources in tenancy. And again, if you recall from the previous module on just on IAM policies, manage is the highest level of verb which is available, and all resources mean admins can manage everything in OCI. Tenancy is basically the account. So due to the policy inheritance, the administrators group and users within that group can also do anything in any of the compartments in the tenancy. In my previous example in the demo, you saw my tenancy had 15 compartments, and the users as part of the administrators group could actually manage resources in any of those compartments because of this concept of inheritance. Now let's look at an example. Let's say we have the root compartment, which is, again, as we discussed, is the parent for all the other compartments in a tenancy, and there are three other compartments, A, B and C. So policies that applies to resources in compartment A also apply to resources in compartments B and C. So what it means is, if you write a policy which says allow network group network admins to manage virtual network family in compartment A, basically that also allows the group network admins to manage networks in compartments B and C. So you don't have to specifically write policies specifically for compartments B and C, because they are inheriting policies from their parent compartment. Now, the second important concept you need to understand is the concept of attachment. When you create a policy, you must attach it to a compartment, or for that matter to the root compartment tenancy. Where you attach it is really important, because that controls who can modify it or delete it. So for example, if you attach it to the tenancy, also the root compartment, then anyone who has access to manage policies in the tenancy, like administrators, can change or delete it. But if you attach it to a child compartment, so here if it's in compartment A, B or C, then anyone with access to manage the policies in that specific compartment, you can also define compartment admins, for example, can change or delete it. So you can have compartment A admins here, you can have compartment B admins here, etc., right? And you can define you can attach your policies to these different compartments, and you can have different policies for each of these admins. Now let's look at an example. So let's say you want to create a policy to allow network admins to manage networks in compartment C, right here. So you could attach the policy either here, or you could attach policy here, and you could write a policy like this, right? Group allow network admins to manage virtual network family in compartment C. So you could definitely write it here. You could also write in B, and because of inheritance, the policy will apply to VCNs in compartment C, right? But if you want to write this policy in compartment A, how would you do that? Because compartment A has it is part of a tree, but it really doesn't know where C exists, right? So the way you would do that is you would say allow group network admins to manage virtual network family in compartment, and right here you would provide a path B colon C. So if you do B colon C and you do this you write you can put the policy right here. If you don't do this, then A has no idea of where the C compartment is, and it would not be able to if you do that, the system will give you an error saying that this policy could not be attached to compartment A. Now let's get a bit clear on this. If you write a policy here, only compartment A admins can modify it. Compartment B admins and compartment C admins might not be able to modify it. And network admins can still only manage networks in compartment C, because your policy says B colon C, so it's going all the way to compartment C. In the same example, if you want to attach this policy, you want to keep things simpler, in the root compartment tenancy, you will have to give the full path. So it's A colon B colon C, right? And so that way you have a complete path, and you could attach this policy right here in the root compartment. Now, what happens when you move a compartment to a different parent compartment? There are certain restrictions. You can do this when you move a compartment. All its content, including the sub-compartment and resources, are moved with it. Now, there are a couple of restrictions. You cannot move a compartment to a destination compartment with the same name as the compartment being moved. So the compartment B here cannot be moved here because it shares the name with the parent here. So it cannot be possible. Two compartments within the same parent cannot have the same name. So for example, if there was a compartment C here, and let's say there was a compartment C here, you could not move C right here, because then this and this would have the same name. So there's a couple of restrictions you have to keep in mind. So let's look at a couple of examples on policy implications when moving compartment. Now this is really important because this comes up on the exams, several exams we have. So let's look at this really quickly. So policies that specify the compartment hierarchy down to the compartment being moved, so this is first condition which has to be true, will automatically be updated when the policy is attached to a shared ancestor of the current and target parent. So this is the second condition which has to be true, right? So let's look at an example. So in this case, the compartment which is being moved is compartment A, right? Now the policy has to specify the compartment hierarchy, which we saw on the earlier slide, down to the compartment being moved. So you have to write a policy like this in the hierarchy, test colon A, right? So this is going all the way to the compartment being moved. Now where is this policy being defined? It's being defined at a shared ancestor. So in this case, ops is a shared ancestor. This compartment A has to be moved here. So ops is a shared ancestor of both test and dev. So the second condition is met, and the first condition says the compartment hierarchy is down to the compartment being moved. So test colon A is this compartment is being moved. So if you do this, right, and you write a policy right here, then the policy automatically changes right here, and it gets updated to dev colon A, and policy is automatically updated, and this group G1 doesn't lose its permissions. Now let's look at another example. In this case, my shared ancestor is the root, which is definitely possible, because root is sort of the shared ancestor for for all the other compartments within the tenancy. Now in this case, you write a policy here like the previous example, but you only give the path from ops to test. So if you do this, right, there is ops to test. The second condition, shared ancestor, is met. Both of them are shared ancestor, so that's good. But the first condition says that the compartment being moved, you have to write the policy down to that, give the whole hierarchy. In this case, are we doing that? We are going from ops to test, but not to compartment A here. So if you do this, and there is a policy you define on this group G1 loses that policy when the compartment is being moved, because it has no idea where this compartment A, the tree, the path, the hierarchy path, where it is, right? But in this case, if you had done ops colon test colon A, it would have, and you did the move, it would have changed it to ops dev colon A, as in the previous example, because there is a shared ancestor, and if you had specified this right here, it would have done that. So it's again a little bit tricky. Just have to make sure that you understand the concept. The compartment being moved, you have to give the whole hierarchy path. otherwise the policies doesn't get updated. Now there's another thing which you have to keep in mind is if you write a policy and attach it directly to a compartment getting moved, that policy is not automatically updated. So we write a policy here on the test compartment and it's a parent, so this A inherits from test, and you do this right here on the test. The policy is not automatically updated and becomes invalid because it's directly attached to the compartment. Thank you for joining this lecture on policy inheritance and attachment. If you have time, join the next lecture where we talk about tax. Thank you.